Greetings lore captains, Avrengost here, this time talking about the new major patch for Warhammer Rogue Trader. Patch 1.3 dropped yesterday by the time I'm recording this video, and it's packed with some really cool changes and fixes. Before we dive into the most interesting bits, let's talk about Owlcat for a sec. They've got a history of supporting the games for ages, like they did with Kingmaker and Wrath of the Righteous, so I'm expecting them to keep fixing and updating this game for a good while. Like I mentioned in my Void Shadows review, the base game was playable for me at launch, but not for everyone. There were quite a few bugs, and some folks ran into so many that they couldn't continue with quests, even the main one. Now, all those big problems are gone, making it an awesome time to jump into the game. Patch 1.3 brings a ton of fixes. I'm not gonna go through all of them, just the big ones or the ones I felt were crucial during my multiple playthroughs. By the way, I'm not planning another run until the next DLC drops. Lex Imperialis was supposed to hit in December 2024, but it's been delayed to a TBD date. Void Shadows was really good despite the delay, so I'm hoping they keep up that quality level and don't rush things. Anyway, spoiler alert, cause we're diving into some deep story stuff here. Alright, let's get into it. First off, this patch brings a bunch of quality of life improvements, and that's always a win. The highlights are super interesting, but I'm not just sticking to those. I want to dive into some details here. They've fixed some crashes and soft locks, which is always a good thing. I never ran into this myself, but some folks definitely did. In the narrative section of the patch notes, there is a big boost in conviction points from dialogues and projects you've finished. This was desperately needed because in my first playthrough I couldn't max out my conviction. They've since balanced it by giving you more points, but you still needed to make most of the conviction choices. Now, you've got a bit more wiggle room in your playthrough. There's a ton of fixes for quests, and Heinrich's phantom dialogues have been sorted out, even making his romance hand feel more natural now. I romanced him in my heretical run, and the relationship ended abruptly for no apparent reason. I mean, I was just a little heretical girl. We've got various fixes for dialogues and quests that could softlock in all 5 acts. One cool thing is the added rewards for deciding Footfall's fate in Act 2, which previously felt a little underwhelming. Earliet won't snap at you as much in Act 3 anymore, but I kinda thought that was part of her charm, so I didn't mind it too much. What's really cool is they added some reactivity for Heinrichs regarding Chorda's methods on Footfall in Act 4. It was always weird that he didn't comment on that before, especially if you'd made him more compassionate in an Iconoclast run. From a mechanics standpoint, it's pretty interesting that they've added some missing talents to the exemplar list and threw in 2 more. By the time you hit exemplar levels, you're usually so strong that it doesn't make much difference, but hey, more options are always good. They've also done a consistency pass on grenades and stimulants, meaning they should work more predictably now. I've always found them a bit hit or miss, so I mostly steer clear. This is huge, especially if you've done a Pyromancer run. They've finally made talents that give bonus damage affect damage over time too. That Pyro Executioner build should be even nastier now. These last 2 changes are interesting because they listen to community feedback. They've reworked the Chorda battle on Footfall in Act 4, which remember is optional, and the Gene Stealer's encounter on the Space Lock. We've got a bajillion mechanics fixes, and then there's the items section. New Force Swords, that's great news for Heinrichs and Force Weapon builds, there weren't many before. They've balanced the loot tables in the first 2 acts, and now you can equip a wider range of items for your Eldari and Drukhari companions. Their gear options were super limited before. Another bajillion fixes for weapons and gear, and then we hit the location category. They fixed those broken stairs during the Nemesite fight in Void Shadows. He moves around a lot, so it wasn't a massive issue, but nice for those on hard or unfair difficulties that need to really take advantage of the battlefield. Now, you can loot trophies at the plundered Void Station, which makes sense, and they've added new loot for beating the Demon Engine on the other Space Hulk. That encounter's tough, especially if you stumble upon it early in the game, so a good reward was needed. They've also spruced up various cutscenes, navigation, pathing, and lighting in major locations. These spots are crucial for the main quests, so extra effort is worth it. They've sorted out places where Ulfar could get stuck. His mobility was terrible due to his size, which made me bench him a lot. For visuals, they've improved cutscenes and even added new ones for key NPCs or enemy intros. That's awesome. They've tweaked party members' models to match their portraits better. While not strictly necessary, it shows they care about the details and love their game. Then there are fixes and improvements for animations and visual effects. But what really clinches this patch for me is the UI fix. You can now rotate the Grand Strategist zones. That's huge and much needed, making the archetype even more strategically viable. If there was one fix I was desperate for, it was this. Also, the accessibility improvements for tooltips and changing the speed-up key binding in combat are great. You can now avoid misclicks that could end your turn. I'm confused about this hold position mention though. I was sure I could already stop my party from walking into traps by pressing H. In the audio section, the key thing is they're adding more voice-acted lines. Owlcat gets that good voice acting can push a CRPG beyond its niche, and they're all on it. I'm totally behind this move. For space, I'm glad they fixed the Homunculus follow-up quest. It was always a mess. Also, the Space Hulk in the Mundus Nullius system has been sorted out. It was confusing and could screw up an achievement. I'm also pleased with the narrative updates for colony events. It's an RPG and immersion is key. They've adjusted some colony project requirements and rewards. Fingers crossed for the better rewards part. Some were a bit disappointing before. I didn't play co-op, so I've got nothing on that. Localization fixes across various languages show attention to detail again, and they've finally fixed the achievement for Deepest Conviction. That one drove me nuts on my first playthrough. Anyway, I think that's the gist of it, or at least the most interesting bits from these patch notes. As always, please like, comment and subscribe. All that YouTube stuff helps my video reach more RPG fans. Thanks so much for watching, I really appreciate it. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.